Do your best to look to the front right of our boat. 2 buildings over from the river. There's a blue glass skyscraper with stone columns on either side. So that's to the front right of us, 2 buildings over from the river. The blue glass skyscraper with stone columns on either side. It's going to disappear in the next few seconds. That's the Montgomery. Originally, that is the corporate headquarters for Montgomery Ward Catalog. Currently, the building is home to the Chicago-based company, Groupon. Most people like that. Yeah. So the building is designed by the architect Minoru Yamasaki. A few people know Yamasaki's name. He is the architect who gave us the World Trade Centers in New York. But that building, pretty different than most of his other designs. For the corporate headquarters. He decided he was going to embrace Aaron Montgomery Ward's philosophy. The founder of the catalog, Aaron Montgomery Ward, was known for disapproving of a physical way to show priority or preference among his employees. Ward believed that this created undue competition with his workers. Fast forward, all those years later into the 1970s, Yamasaki sits down to design the corporate headquarters and he just thinks, no corner offices. That way, no one's going to feel more privileged than the worker based solely on
Big Brother is watching you, Baba.
Now, the Montgomery Ward catalog is the very first mail order catalog to leave Chicago. It starts in the 1870s, and our first catalog, only a single sheet of paper with 165 items on it. But by the early 1900s, our circulation is 3 million nationwide. Every catalog at that time weighed over 4 pounds. This company is in production over 100 years into the 1980s. That's when Montgomery Ward discontinued the catalog. In the early 1990s is technically when the company declared for bankruptcy. First part of the 1900s, this area of our North Branch somewhat dedicated to the catalog. This CAD building on our right-hand side with the black balconies, originally the office building for Montgomery Ward, currently residential space again that's adapted for use in architecture. When we clear the Chicago Avenue Bridge, we're going to be in front of a massive building that wraps around the bend of our North Branch. The domain is originally constructed as the warehouse for Montgomery Ward. That's going to be on your right-hand side as we clear the bridge. 1908, this building is completed as the warehouse for Montgomery Ward. The building is done in what we call prairie-style architecture. So the style of prairie, coined and developed by the architect Frank Lloyd Wright. It is easily identified by that extreme emphasis that you can see on the horizontal line, which is to be reflective of the Midwest landscape. This building is so massive. In order for Ward employees to fill their catalog orders on time, they had to use roller skates getting from one of the buildings to the next. So in 2003, Papa Haynes converts the building into condominiums. Lo and behold, they discover over 300 pairs of roller skates and closets throughout that entire building. So we're going to start to make a turn, and we're going to find where there's a fork in the North Branch of the Chicago River. The North Branch of our Chicago River actually extends northwest, which is to your left-hand side. To the front right of you, extending north, is the Ogden Canal. Now, as we make this turn on our left, we're coming into view of an industrial park. It is the slab of concrete with a metal fence wrapped around it. You can see Greyhound buses parked up there. A little further tucked up on land, that's Kendall College Culinary Institute in Chicago. Basically, if you're looking at that metal fence on your left, you are looking at the right spot. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Goose Island. So Goose Island, only island on our Chicago River. That is a man-made island. Now it comes about shortly after the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. As you can imagine, after this massive fire in Chicago, our city has a little rebuilding. So, our first mayor, Mayor Ogden, still in office, decides he's going to dredge the Ogden Canal of the North Branch. You do not have to look. This is just a refresher. But to your right, extending northwest, that is the North Branch of the river. Behind us and to the left, extending north, Ogden Canal. What Ogden's doing when he's creating this canal is dredging up clay from the floor of our Chicago River to go to brickyards around our city, assisting in the rebuilding of Chicago after that massive fire, while he's creating that little tiny canal, a man-made chunk of land behind us developed. Now it receives the name Goose Island because of the Irish immigrants who set up residency there and raised their peace flags. There are residents on that island all the way up until the 1980s. It's not until the 1990s that they turned it into the industrial park we see today. Many people already know the name Goose Island because of a brewery out of Chicago. Goose Island beer is pretty well known. One of their more popular beers, 312. It's the area code, folks, not 312. That's why whenever you visit a Chicago bar, the tap will always be in the shape of a phone. If you have any questions about the breweries, where they're located, or if tours are available, please don't hesitate to ask. I'd love to assist. Now, if you do not want to wait to sample a Goose Island beer, go downstairs and say hello to Katie and Patrick at the bar. They do have both 312 and Helper's Ale available on that lower level in the cabin for you. As we clear Chicago Avenue Bridge, pull your attention back to the right. Want to come into view of a beautiful Bedford building. Nope, that building's not pretty in the slightest, is it? This is our Chicago Tribune Freedom Center. Admittedly, it is not that impressive on the outside. But what it holds inside it, pretty phenomenal. This is where Tribune prints their paper. Inside the building, behold 10 Metroliner gas presses. Now, every one of these presses is actually so heavy they require their own foundation to go into the bedrock of the river. Each of these 10 presses can crank out up to 7,000 copies of the paper in an hour. So the building is an asset for Tribune when we have major events in our city. For example, the election of President Obama when he happened to be in our Grand Park of downtown. This building, on both riverways as well as railways, that makes access to shipping it nationwide far more available for Tribune. Tribune has a sense of humor. They took a poll of the ugliest buildings on the river, and their own Freedom Center wound up at number 2. So, we're headed south along this North Branch. As you can see, we're going to pass by a few buildings we've discussed this evening. I would love to use this opportunity to touch on a little Chicago history with you. It is a wonderful opportunity to get up, stretch your legs if you need to, take some photos with friends and family, say hello to Katie and Patrick at the bar. They do have coffee, tea, hot chocolate, lemonade, juice, bottles of water, soft drinks, and snacks available. But occasionally, if you ask them nicely and you promise you'll treat them well, they've been known to make a few things a little stronger. So we've had a few events that have defined Chicago over the centuries. But probably the biggest event with the most impact in our city today is the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. No one really knows exactly how this fire started. Somehow, poor Mrs. O'Leary's cow always gets the brunt of it all by being accused of knocking over that lantern in her barn. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, that cow's been exonerated. The American Bar Association gave our poor girl a mock trial. We cleared the cow's name. No one could prove it was really her fault. Now, there have been numerous theories as to how the fire could have started, but it's most commonly believed meteor showers. Surrounding areas in Illinois and Wisconsin caught fire that exact same day. For whatever reason it starts, when it hit Chicago, devastating. Everything we have and will see today, wiped out. Technically, this is our museum campus, which is Roosevelt Road, all the way north to Fullerton Avenue in Lincoln Park, Halstead to the lakefront. Now, the fire is so destructive because of the conditions that led up to it. In the August and September, before the fire in October, Chicago only has about a half inch of rain. Most of Chicago at this time made out of cast iron and wood. That literally means that the buildings are wood, the bridges are wood, our sidewalks are wood. So these very dry conditions, construction of the city, winds fanning our fire 25 miles an hour, let it burn for over a solid day. We had really hoped that this river would stop the fire. But the river is so polluted. The fire jumps the river and continues into downtown, leaving 100,000 homes, a third of the population, 17,000 businesses and residences destroyed. Over 300 people have lost their lives. But we are not a city that takes things lying down. In a matter of days, there are temporary structures all around Chicago. We take all this rubble and debris and we push it to the lake, extending the coastline. So where we started the tour at the Michigan Avenue dock used to be where Chicago would greet Lake Michigan. Everything that is east of where we started the tour today is landfill from our fire. We come back very quickly. In a matter of years, we are bigger, we are better, we are proud of the new Chicago. 1884, we succeeded the first skyscraper. William LeBaron Jennings Home Insurance Building was a full 10 stories with a steel frame. We are proud of the new Chicago. We want the country and the world to take note of our second city we built. So we put our bid in for the World Columbian Exposition. That is a highly sought after World's Fair. It's based on a fair in Paris where the Eiffel Tower was revealed, giving both Paris and the tower international recognition. Everybody wants to host this. New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, we all send our best politicians. Chicago politicians. lobby long and hard. They lobby so much, a New York Times reporter says, please do not trust those Chicago politicians. They're nothing but a bunch of windbags blowing hot air from that windy city. And that's how we got the nickname. We're pretty lucky they lobbied so fiercely. We received that exposition. It opens May 1st, 1893, Jackson Park. Daniel Burnham is the chief architect. 3 years, he and his team erect 250 buildings, all of which have a whitewash, giving them the nickname the White City. One of the fair's exhibits coloring the exposition, and a locker mirrors here. Juicy fruit gum. Aunt Jemima's everything you need to make pancakes in a box. Cracker Jacks, the first hamburger. Pabst beer from mirrors here, that is where Pabst won the lubricant. Couple of interesting things on display. A suspension bridge is made out of soap, a life-size knighted horse made out of prunes. The U.S. map is constructed out of pickles. And Chicago's answer to the Eiffel Tower is the world's first Ferris wheel.